Welcome the Lord's chosen. Not everything that looks calculated is calculation. Sometimes it's just someone listening to a voice you can't hear. Think about that for a second. The average human makes over 35,000 decisions a day. See, but here's the twist. Most of them are made unconsciously, without spreadsheets, without debate, without 10 group chats of, what do you think I should do? And yet, when you move with that same instinctive speed, people swear you've got a 5-year plan hidden in your back pocket. It's almost funny, isn't it? You zig when they expect you to zag, and suddenly you're branded calculated, like you're secretly auditioning for a role in a heist movie. But the truth is far more unnerving to them. You're not sitting there plotting like a chess master. You're simply moving intuitively, and that terrifies people who need logic, predictability, and control to feel safe. See, when you flow with intuition, you expose the limits of their logic. To them, it looks like you had a secret manual to life they never got access to. But the real secret is this: you're just listening to the signals they keep ignoring. And nothing unsettles people more than realizing your plans are actually just proof you're tapped in, while they're still buffering like an outdated Wi-Fi connection. Number one, they call you calculated because they don't understand flow. They call you calculated because they don't understand flow. What they mistake for hours of planning, scheming, or mapping out every move is really you moving with an internal rhythm that can't be charted on paper. Flow doesn't need a whiteboard. It doesn't need bullet points. And it definitely doesn't need the kind of overthinking most people drown in. Flow is immediate, it's instinctive, it's raw, and it doesn't pause to check if everyone else understands it before acting. People who live by logic and rigid planning can't wrap their heads around someone who operates from alignment. To them, every step you take looks too perfect to not be calculated. They see you shift directions at just the right time, say no just before something crashes, or walk through a door the second it opens, and they assume you must have drawn up the blueprint months ago. What they don't realize is that the blueprint doesn't exist. You're simply attuned enough to sense timing in ways they can't. Flow lets you move without hesitation while they're still overanalyzing the first step. The real difference is this: they depend on certainty. You depend on trust. They wait for confirmation, evidence, or approval before taking action, which means by the time they move, the moment has already passed. You, on the other hand, act while the energy is fresh. You don't need 100 reassurances. You only need that deep pull that says, this is it. And when you respond to that pull, it naturally looks like you calculated everything in advance, because the results line up in a way their logic never could. The irony is that flow looks structured from the outside. Your timing lines up. Your decisions seem sharp. Your outcomes often land exactly where they need to. That confuses people who only know one way of operating: calculate, prepare, rehearse, and then finally act. So when they watch you, they assume you must be doing the same thing, only better. But what they're really witnessing is the difference between living in their heads and living in alignment with something deeper. Calling you calculated is their way of explaining what they can't grasp. Flow doesn't fit into their categories. It's not math, it's not manipulation, it's not control. It's simply the art of trusting yourself so completely that life seems to arrange itself around your steps. That's not calculation. That's freedom. Number two, intuition is your supercomputer. Intuition is your supercomputer. While others are still running on dial-up level thinking, you're processing at lightning speed without even trying. The beauty of intuition is that it bypasses all the unnecessary clutter people get stuck in, the second-guessing, the overthinking, the endless debates in their head. You don't need to lay out 1,000 scenarios or calculate the odds like you're solving a math problem. Your inner knowing cuts straight to the answer, and that efficiency makes people believe you must have spent hours analyzing every angle. In reality, you just trusted the download that came instantly. Most people don't realize how much slower logic is compared to intuition. Logic has to weigh, measure, and compare. Intuition simply knows. It's like having access to a shortcut no one else can see. You don't waste time asking what if, because your body, your spirit, and your inner sense already said, this is it. That speed throws people off. They can't fathom how you made a decision in seconds that they'd still be debating for weeks, so they assume you must have been preparing behind the scenes. But there's no hidden preparation, just your ability to pick up on things others ignore. What makes intuition powerful is that it's rooted in both seen and unseen information. You notice details most people skim over, and at the same time, you feel undercurrents that can't be measured. That's why your choices end up looking sharp and precise, even though you didn't consciously analyze them. Your supercomputer is always running in the background, and when the moment comes, you don't hesitate to act on the signal it gives. It's not magic, but it feels like magic to those who can't access it. People who rely only on logic often dismiss intuition because they can't control it. They want formulas, patterns, or proof. You're not bound by any of that. You're willing to leap because you trust what your inner compass tells you. And that willingness to trust yourself gives you an edge. It makes you unpredictable, it makes you efficient, and it makes you dangerous to those who think the only way to win is to calculate every move. The truth is, intuition is the ultimate calculation. Faster, deeper, and far more accurate than any spreadsheet of probabilities. That's why it's your supercomputer. Number 3, they fear what they can't predict. They fear what they can't predict. People feel safe when they can read others, when they can anticipate the next move, when they believe they've figured someone out. Predictability gives them a sense of control, even if it's an illusion. But when it comes to you, they don't get that comfort. You don't move in patterns they can memorize, and you don't reveal your steps in ways they can measure. That uncertainty unsettles them. It makes them nervous. And instead of admitting they don't understand you, they label you as calculated. It's easier for them to believe you're plotting than to accept that you operate on a frequency they can't access. What scares them most is that unpredictability strips them of their power. People can only manipulate what they can anticipate. If they know your routine, your reactions, or your weak points, they feel in control. But when you move intuitively, you take away their script. They can't guess what you'll say, they can't forecast what you'll do, and they can't prepare their responses ahead of time. That leaves them exposed, and exposure feels threatening to those who thrive on control. This fear doesn't come from you being aggressive or even secretive. It comes from you being free. Freedom terrifies people who are trapped in predictability. They need patterns to feel secure, but you're not bound by patterns. You're guided by timing, alignment, and inner signals that they can't see. To them, that looks like chaos. To you, it's clarity, and in that clarity, you become unreadable. Being unreadable is not about hiding who you are. It's about refusing to live by someone else's expectations. The moment people realize they can't map out your every move, they start to panic. They confuse unpredictability with danger when in reality it's just independence. You don't fit in their boxes, and that refusal to be boxed in is what unsettles them. At the core of it, their fear is really an admission. It's proof that they cannot understand how you operate, and people fear what they don't understand. They'd rather accuse you of manipulation than face the truth that you're simply moving in ways their limited thinking can't anticipate. Their fear doesn't expose a flaw in you, it exposes the limits in them. Number 4, you move before the proof appears. You move before the proof appears. That's what separates you from most people. The majority waits until the evidence stacks up, until the risk looks small, until someone else validates the move first. They need numbers, signs, and endless confirmations before they act. By then, the opportunity has already passed. But you act when your inner knowing says it's time, and that leap is what bends reality in your favor. Proof doesn't come before your step, it comes after. This unsettles people because it flips the order they've been taught to believe in. They think proof is supposed to lead to action, not the other way around. To them, your moves look reckless, impulsive, even foolish at times. Yet what they don't see is that your willingness to move without evidence is exactly why the evidence eventually lines up for you. Life responds to decisiveness. Energy responds to commitment. Once you step doors open that would have stayed shut if you waited around for permission. The truth is, waiting for proof is a safety net for those who don't trust themselves. They lean on validation because they're terrified of being wrong. But you've learned that waiting too long is the greater risk. You've seen that hesitation kills more dreams than failure ever could. So you trust the pull and take the step. That trust looks dangerous to those who only know how to live within guarantees, but to you, it's the only way to live free. Moving before proof doesn't mean moving blindly. It means moving with trust. It means betting on your inner compass when everyone else is paralyzed by doubt. And when that move unfolds exactly as it should, people call it luck, strategy, or calculation, because they can't admit that it was simply intuition backed by courage. They don't realize the proof they worship only appeared because you chose to act first. That's why your steps unsettle people. They're watching someone build proof out of thin air while they're still waiting for a green light. Your life is evidence that reality bends for the ones bold enough to move without evidence. And that's not calculation, that's faith in action. Number 5, their logic lives in delay. Your intuition lives in real time. Their logic lives in delay. Your intuition lives in real time. That is the gap that sets you apart. Logic demands a process. Gather information, weigh pros and cons, compare options, predict outcomes, then finally decide. It's a long, winding path that often collapses under its own weight, because by the time the decision is made, the moment has already shifted. Intuition, on the other hand, doesn't need the long path. It operates in the now, pulling from signals, patterns, and undercurrents that logic is too slow to catch. You move when the timing is right, not when the math says it's safe. This is why people accuse you of being ahead of your time. They can't see how you landed in the right place before the evidence lined up, so they assume you had access to something they didn't. In a way, you did. You trusted the information that doesn't come in charts or reports. Your timing isn't a matter of luck or hidden calculation. It's the result of listening to the real-time data that most people ignore. Energy, instinct, alignment, and subtle cues. The irony is that by the time logic confirms what you already acted on, the same people who doubted you suddenly call it obvious. They rewrite history and act as though they knew it all along, but deep down they recognize that you moved first. That recognition stings because it highlights their own delay. They were waiting for certainty while you were creating it. They were analyzing possibilities while you were shaping reality. This real-time intuition makes you difficult to box in. People who rely on logic are always playing catch-up, chasing an outcome you've already stepped into. To them, it looks like foresight. To you, it's simply being present enough to respond immediately when your inner sense says, move. That speed, that fluidity, is why you seem to stay ahead, even when you're not trying to. What unnerves them most is that they can't replicate it. Logic can be taught. Intuition has to be trusted. And trusting yourself in real time is something many people will never dare to do. That's why they label you ahead of your time. The truth is you're not ahead. You're just here, fully present, moving while they're still buffering. And number 6, you don't chase control, you follow alignment. You don't chase control, you follow alignment. That's the part that so many people misunderstand about you. They think every step you take is part of some master plan to manipulate outcomes or bend situations to your will. In their world, control is the goal. They scramble to predict, to orchestrate, to force results into their favor, because without control, they feel powerless. But you move differently. Your focus isn't on controlling what happens, it's on staying in rhythm with what feels right. And that rhythm always places you where you need to be. Alignment is not about forcing life to obey your timeline. It's about trusting that when you move with your inner sense, the right people, opportunities, and outcomes naturally align around you. Control is exhausting. It requires constant effort, endless adjustments, and the anxiety of trying to dominate variables you'll never fully manage. Alignment is lighter but infinitely stronger. It doesn't drain you, it carries you. That's why your steps don't look frantic. They look graceful, almost effortless, as if the path just unfolds for you. To outsiders, this looks suspicious. They assume you must be scheming, pulling strings, or plotting 10 steps ahead. What they can't comprehend is that alignment requires less manipulation, not more. It's not about bending reality. It's about listening closely enough to move with it instead of against it. That kind of trust unsettles people who need guarantees because they're addicted to control as their only form of safety. The reason alignment works so powerfully is because it connects you with timing. When you're aligned, you don't arrive too early or too late. You arrive exactly when you're meant to, and that precision creates the illusion of control. But it's not control, it's harmony. It's the difference between forcing a door open and walking through when it naturally swings wide. Following alignment also makes you immune to desperation. You don't chase outcomes, so you're never enslaved to them. You know that if something isn't for you, forcing it will only break you. That calm, steady confidence unsettles those who are constantly wrestling life for control. While they burn themselves out, gripping tighter, you move with the rhythm, and that rhythm always takes you further than control ever could. Number 7. They confuse precision with overthinking. They confuse precision with overthinking. To them, anything that looks sharp, timely, and exact must have come from hours of plotting, endless weighing of options, and sleepless nights of rehearsing outcomes. They don't understand that clarity can strike in a single second, and when it does, you don't need to drag it through weeks of analysis. You move. That one flash of knowing is enough, and the result is so precise that they assume you obsessed over it. In reality, the obsessing is what slows them down. You simply trusted what arrived immediately. Overthinking often creates clutter, not clarity. People confuse noise with wisdom, believing the more they wrestle with a decision, the smarter it must be. They'll sit in loops, replaying the same fears, the same doubts, the same angles until the original moment of opportunity slips through their fingers. Precision doesn't come from circling the same thought 100 times. It comes from recognizing the signal when it appears and acting without hesitation. That's the part they can't wrap their heads around. The sharpness of your choices exposes how unnecessary their overthinking is. You don't need months of mental gymnastics because you're not trying to control every possible outcome. You just respond to the pull that feels certain in your body and your spirit. That certainty doesn't need explanation, it needs execution. And when you execute with that kind of decisiveness, the results look like you spent weeks crafting them. That illusion of planning unsettles them because it contradicts everything they were taught about how success or clarity is supposed to work. The truth is, what they call precision isn't precision at all, it's alignment. When you're aligned, decisions lock into place cleanly, without friction. That seamlessness is what makes them look perfect from the outside. But perfect timing doesn't come from grinding. It comes from trusting the flash of insight when it lands. So they keep assuming you're overthinking because that's the only frame of reference they know. They can't accept that someone could arrive at clarity faster than their fear allows. What they miss is that your precision isn't the product of obsession. It's the reward of trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the signal, trust in the 1-second clarity that overthinking would have buried. And that's why your moves look sharper than theirs ever will. Number 8, your timing exposes their hesitation. Your timing exposes their hesitation. Every time you move, it looks to others like you waited for the exact perfect second, like you had some insider advantage or a master calendar guiding you. But that's not the truth. What they see as perfect timing is simply the natural consequence of you acting the moment you know, instead of sitting in the endless cycle of thinking. They hesitate, they delay. They stall waiting for proof, and in that delay, they lose the very timing that would have carried them. You move in the now, and that alone makes it look like you're ahead of them. Hesitation is what cripples most people. They feel the same nudge you feel, but they drown it in doubt. They ask themselves a dozen questions. They wait for validation. They rehearse their steps in their minds until the window closes. Then when you move with speed and clarity, they convince themselves you must have had some secret knowledge they didn't. But the truth is, you both had the same opportunity. You just acted while they were still debating. This is why your timing bothers people. It doesn't just reveal that you trusted yourself. It reveals that they didn't. Every decisive move you make is a mirror reflecting their hesitation back at them. They could have moved too, but they didn't. And seeing you succeed where they froze feels like a spotlight on their fear. To them, your action feels like judgment, even though you're not thinking about them at all. What they call luck or perfect placement is actually just responsiveness. You aren't forcing timing, you're cooperating with it. You move when the pull says move, and that puts you in position before the overthinkers even step forward. That's why it looks flawless from the outside, not because you staged it, but because timing rewards the ones who refuse to hesitate. Your ability to move when you know, not when you think, is what keeps you in rhythm with opportunities. Thinking has its place, but it's often too slow. Knowing is immediate. And in a world where hesitation is the norm, your timing will always stand out. It's not perfection they're seeing. It's just the difference between living paralyzed by what if and living empowered by this is it. Number 9. You're not hiding motives. You're following instincts. You're not hiding motives. You're following instincts. That's the misunderstanding that constantly shadows you. People who live their lives driven by fear, greed, or ego assume everyone else must operate the same way. When they see your choices, they try to trace them back to some hidden agenda, some scheme, or some manipulative plan. But your movements don't come from a place of calculation like theirs do. They come from instinct, from a deep sense of knowing that doesn't need to justify itself through strategy or manipulation. The problem is, many people can't comprehend a decision made without an ulterior motive. If they say yes, it's because they're afraid of losing something. If they say no, it's because their pride won't let them bend. If they move forward, it's usually because they're chasing status, approval, or control. So when you act outside of those frameworks, your behavior looks alien to them. They can't believe anyone would move simply because it feels right. To them, there must be some hidden angle. And because they can't see one, they assume you're concealing it on purpose. This projection says more about them than it does about you. They reveal, through their suspicions, that they don't know how to operate without an agenda. They can't imagine someone being guided by something deeper, like alignment or instinct, because their world is ruled by motives that constantly need validation. That's why they try to paint you as calculated. It's easier for them to accuse you of scheming than to admit you're tapped into a way of moving they don't understand. Instinct doesn't need an explanation. It doesn't ask, will this make me look powerful? Or, will this protect my pride? It just says, move, and you move. That simplicity looks suspicious to people who complicate every decision with ego. What they can't accept is that sometimes the most direct choices don't come from plotting, but from trusting. You don't owe them motives, and you don't owe them explanations. The irony is the clarity they accuse you of hiding isn't hidden at all. It's just invisible to eyes clouded by greed, fear, and ego. You're not hiding anything. You're simply living by instincts they've long since silenced. That's why your steps look mysterious even when they're not. Number 10. What looks like calculation is actually courage. What looks like calculation is actually courage. People assume you've mapped out every detail, crafted a flawless strategy, and rehearsed the outcome until it looks inevitable. But the truth is far less comfortable than that. You move on conviction that can't be proven, on signals no one else can see, and on inner certainty that could make you look foolish if it doesn't pan out. That isn't calculation. That's bravery. And most people can't recognize it as such because they've never dared to trust themselves enough to move without guarantees. Courage is often mistaken for planning because the results speak for themselves. When you take a step into the unknown and it aligns perfectly, it gives the illusion that you must have anticipated everything. But what really happened is that you acted when fear told you to pause. You trusted yourself in the absence of proof. You leaned into risk when safety said wait. That willingness to face uncertainty head-on is what makes your choices look precise. The irony is that the precision isn't born from planning. It's born from refusing to let fear dictate your timing. People confuse the two because they don't see the invisible weight behind your decisions. To them, moving after months of preparation feels brave. To you, courage is moving before the conditions are safe. They don't realize the trembling that can come with trusting your instincts, or the strength it takes to silence the doubts that could keep you frozen. They think you're fearless, when in reality you just decided that fear won't stop you. That decision alone is a form of power they can't categorize. The deeper truth is that courage creates outcomes calculation could never reach. Strategy alone can't replicate the alignment that comes when you act boldly on conviction. Strategy waits for permission. Courage creates openings. Strategy plays it safe. Courage bends the rules. And that bending is what makes your moves look impossibly sharp from the outside. So when they say you're calculated, they're wrong. What they're witnessing is the disguise courage wears. Bravery rarely looks like chaos. It often looks like precision. It looks like someone who had a plan all along, when in reality all they had was the guts to leap without one. Number 11. They're addicted to blueprints. You're addicted to alignment. They're addicted to blueprints. You're addicted to alignment. That's the split that separates your life from theirs. They can't move without a step-by-step plan, a roadmap, or a guarantee that everything will unfold exactly as they expect. They cling to instructions, formulas, and timelines because uncertainty terrifies them. If they don't have a map, they freeze. But you don't need 100 steps laid out. You only need that deep, undeniable yes inside you, and that single confirmation is enough to flip your entire life into motion. For them, safety is found in the blueprint. They believe the more details they control, the less likely they'll fail. But blueprints often become cages. They keep people locked into rigid timelines, unable to adapt when life shifts. And life always shifts. The more they cling to the plan, the more they suffer when it unravels. You're free from that because you don't worship the plan. You follow alignment. You let the yes inside you dictate your next step, even when you don't know what step 2 or 3 will be. That freedom is what unnerves them. They can't understand how someone could move so boldly without guarantees. To them it feels reckless. To you it feels natural. Alignment doesn't require all the answers. It requires trust. Trust that the next step will reveal itself once you've taken the first. That's why your life looks fluid while theirs often looks stuck. You're willing to act when the signal arrives while they're still drawing diagrams trying to make sure nothing goes wrong. The irony is their blueprints often betray them. Life rarely respects rigid plans. One unexpected event can throw everything off, and then they're left scrambling. You don't deal with that because you never chained yourself to a plan in the first place. By moving through alignment, you're flexible enough to pivot, shift, and adjust without losing momentum. This is why your decisions seem radical but end up working. It's not recklessness, it's responsiveness. You hear the yes and act. They hear the same whisper but smother it with doubt and planning. And when they finally move, the moment has already passed. Their addiction to blueprints keeps them chasing certainty, while your devotion to alignment keeps you living free. That's the real difference. Number 12, you don't prepare for the room prepares for you. You don't prepare for the room prepares for you. That's the power of moving with intuition instead of strategy. People spend weeks rehearsing, scripting, and rehearsing again, terrified that if they don't over-prepare, they'll fall flat. They obsess over every detail because they believe the weight of the outcome depends entirely on their control. But when you walk into a space, it doesn't feel like you forced your way in. It feels like the room has already been waiting for you. The timing, the energy, and even the people seem to shift in your favor, not because you planned it, but because alignment placed you exactly where you were meant to be. This is what unsettles people the most. They look at you and think, you must have been preparing for this moment for years. But you weren't sitting there, scripting every possible scenario. You were simply tuned into the signal that told you when to step in. That's the difference. They force doors open. You arrive when the doors swing on their own. And when that happens, it gives the illusion that you orchestrated everything in advance. In reality, you just trusted the timing. Your presence shifts dynamics without effort. When you enter a room, it recalibrates because you're not coming from desperation or over-preparation. You're coming from alignment. That calmness carries weight. It's not arrogance, it's certainty. The kind of certainty that can't be rehearsed. People who depend on preparation to feel confident can't understand it. They don't realize that intuition, when trusted, equips you with exactly what's needed for the moment, no more, no less. The truth is, preparation isn't wrong, but over-preparation is a crutch. It tries to cover up the fear of being caught off guard. You don't carry that fear because you know you'll always have what you need when the moment comes. And that knowing transforms the way environments respond to you. Instead of you adjusting to fit the room adjusts to accommodate you. That's why opportunities unfold like they were scripted. That's why conversations tilt in your favor. That's why your timing always feels uncanny. It isn't calculation, it isn't luck. It's alignment, the art of arriving when you're meant to, not when you've over-rehearsed yourself into exhaustion. That's why rooms prepare for you. They don't bend because you forced them. They bend because you were meant to be there. Number 13. Your moves don't beg to be understood. Your moves don't beg to be understood. That's what sets you apart in a world where most people crave validation for every step they take. They won't move until someone nods in agreement, until they've explained their reasons to everyone who might question them, until they've gathered applause to make sure the move looks respectable. But you don't operate like that. Your actions don't come with disclaimers, explanations, or long speeches to convince people you're doing the right thing. You move because you feel it, and that alone is reason enough. This is exactly why people misinterpret you. They can't wrap their heads around a decision that isn't defended with endless justifications. To them, confidence only makes sense when it's backed by logic they can follow. When you step without explaining, they fill the silence with their own projections. They must be hiding something, or they think they're better than us. In reality, you just don't feel the need to make your life legible to people who aren't meant to walk your path. The absence of explanation unsettles them because it denies them control. When you don't explain, they can't measure you, categorize you, or anticipate your next move. They're left in the dark, and instead of admitting their discomfort, they label you calculated or cold. But the truth is simpler. You trust your instincts enough not to justify them. You don't need an audience to clap before you act. You don't need consensus before you choose. You trust the pull and move, even if no one understands it in the moment. The irony is that later, when your decisions unfold exactly as they should, those same people suddenly get it. They rewrite the story and claim it all makes sense now. But you weren't moving for their approval then, and you're not moving for it now. Your path isn't meant to be a group project. It's personal and sometimes deeply private. That's why your steps are powerful. They belong to you, not to the court of public opinion. When your moves don't beg to be understood, you free yourself from the weight of explanation. You stop living for persuasion and start living for alignment. And that's why your life keeps unfolding in ways that baffle those still waiting for applause before they move. Number 14. Their confusion is the proof of your gift. Their confusion is the proof of your gift. If people could easily explain you, reduce you to a formula, or map out your steps like clockwork, then what you carry wouldn't be intuition. It would just be predictability. Predictability makes people comfortable because it gives them the illusion of control. But what you embody can't be charted, rehearsed, or calculated in a way they understand. And that very struggle they have to label you, to categorize you, is evidence that you're operating on a level beyond their framework. Confusion is the language of those who can't see clearly. When they look at you and whisper about how calculated you must be, they're really admitting they have no idea how you do what you do. They're trying to make sense of something they don't have access to. It's easier for them to invent explanations than to face the possibility that you're simply gifted in a way that defies their logic. Their accusations are confessions, confessions of their own limitations. The truth is, gifts are not supposed to be easily understood. If they were, they wouldn't stand out. Intuition, timing, presence, and alignment are all invisible skills that reveal themselves through results, not through explanation. That's why your moves feel so disruptive to people. They can see the outcome, but they can't trace the process. And because the process doesn't fit into their version of how life is supposed to work, they label it suspicious, manipulative, or unnatural. But in reality, it's simply uncommon. What they call confusion, you call clarity. What they see as mystery, you know as trust. That gap between their perception and your reality is exactly what makes your gift undeniable. You're not here to be predictable, to make everyone comfortable, or to let them chart your every move. You're here to move in ways that feel right to you, even when they make no sense to anyone else. And the fact that people struggle to decode it is not a problem, it's confirmation. Their confusion is proof. Proof that you're not ordinary. Proof that you're not moving within their limitations. Proof that you're guided by something they can't access through fear, ego, or logic. And proof that your gift isn't meant to be explained, it's meant to be lived. Everything they call calculation is nothing more than you moving with trust. You've shown that intuition isn't weakness. It's a language of its own, one that doesn't need validation, blueprints, or applause to be real. They see precision, but it's actually courage. They see mystery, but it's really alignment. They see a plan, but it's just you refusing to hesitate when the pull says move, and their confusion. That's the clearest evidence that what guides you isn't ordinary. You don't live life on delay, waiting for guarantees that never come. You move before the proof appears. You live in real time. You don't chase control, you follow alignment. You don't prepare for the room prepares for you. That's why your timing always cuts through hesitation like a blade. That's why your steps always feel sharp, even when you took them in a single breath of knowing. What they fear, mislabel, or struggle to decode is not a flaw in you, it's the proof of your gift. You're not meant to be predictable, and you are not meant to be explained. You are meant to embody trust, clarity, and courage in ways that unsettle those still bound by fear, ego, and overthinking. So let them whisper about how calculated you must be. Let them puzzle over what they can't comprehend. At the end of the day, their confusion is just a mirror of their limits, while your life remains the evidence of what happens when you stop chasing certainty and start moving with conviction. And that right there is your undeniable power. If this message spoke to you and hit differently, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. Like, comment, and share this video to spread the energy. Let others see what it means to move with intuition, courage, and alignment. Your support keeps the message alive and growing. Stay blessed, always.